Thank you, everybody. It's a great pleasure to be here. Thank you for inviting me to be part of this conference. I'm going to talk to you about what I do at the Sloan Foundation, our experience that I think may have some relevance, some overlap, although also some differences might be of interest. And I would encourage you to interrupt me at any point and ask me questions. This is not I'm open to discussion about anything that before you that isn't clear. So actually, this is the wrong version, but never mind. Of my, is it possible to get the later, is the technical person here? Well, never mind. We'll go with this. So something about the Sloan Foundation. First of all, I'm not sure how many of you are familiar with American foundations. Okay, let's see if we can get it. No, it's not. I'll go with this. You had it before. That's it. Yeah, great. Thank you very much. Okay. The later version, I change things all the time, so thank you. I was editing it this morning. So the Sloan Foundation is founded in 1934. We're private, nonprofit philanthropy. Our endowment, it was about $2 billion, went down to 1.5, now we're back up to 1.7. We have a lot of money, basically, and to give out. And we make grants for research and education in science, technology, economics, and the quality of American life. And just give you some examples of things that we do a lot of basic science. So we have something called the Sloan Digital Sky Survey, which is a state-of-the-art telescope in New Mexico that's in the process of uncovering 100 million new galaxies and quasars, including the largest known structure in the universe, about 1 billion light years across. And we also have something called the Census of Marine Life, which is a 10-year project involving about 2,500 scientists from 80 countries, including Germany, which is undertaking the first comprehensive effort to measure everything that lives in the oceans, to count the distribution and abundance and diversity of ocean life. And another thing that we do, we give out scholarships, or called fellowships, Sloan Fellowships, to scientists in mid-career. And that's worth noting because 38 of the people that have won those fellowships have gone on to win the Nobel Prize. So we're fairly, we're fairly at the high end of the science enterprise. The program in public understanding of science and technology, I want to explain the aims of it because they're somewhat different in an interesting way from some of the aims of what you're trying to do. One of them, the core aim, is to build bridges between the two cultures of science and the humanities and develop a common language so they can better understand one another. And I think to some extent, my job is essentially as a translator. And there are two components of that: to enhance people's lives of providing better understanding of the increasing scientific and technological environment in which we live, which is really like saying the world we live in is full of science and technology, just telling people more about the real world that they're in. And the other part is to convey some of the challenges and rewards of the scientific and technological enterprise and of the lives of the men and women who undertake it. And that's really to humanize us, to show that it's really something that is done by men and women. If you notice, our aim is not actually to recruit more people to go into science and technology. We do have programs at Sloan that focus on getting more women and minorities into science. But my program, Public Understanding, has not been an explicit aim. So to some extent, that frees me from a certain propagandistic. I don't need to propagandize on behalf of science and technology, which is a big advantage when I deal with the artistic community. These are some of the media. This is a very important concept that I'm going to illustrate in the next couple of slides, which is that I think one should not think of TV or film in isolation. I view the culture more broadly, and at Sloan I've had the opportunity to get involved with books, public radio, public television, commercial TV and film, theater, opera, new media, and I think of them all as reinforcing one another. I've listed some examples, some bestsellers: Collapse by Jared Diamond, Galileo's Daughter by David Sobel. These are grants that we make to writers. American Prometheus, which won the Pulitzer Prize 2 years ago, and we have a book series. We work with a lot of authors to try to get these stories into the public consciousness. And for me, the books are, in some ways, the single most, it's the way things enter the system often, and then they can get amplified. Radio shows, National Public Radio International, CBS, the Osgood File, we work with them, Radiolab, Studio 360. These are shows that we've helped either develop or support to get the word out. Public television, we're involved with many of the we're among the biggest funders of public television shows in the United States. Nova, American Experience. American Experience, interestingly, is a history show. And so our notion was, rather than just going to the people who are interested in science, was to show how science, technology, and economics are part of central drivers in American history, and to open up the notion of what that means. The film program I'm going to talk a little bit more about that focuses on 6 film schools. 3 film festivals have been our major partners. I also started a theater program at Sloan. I should say, when I came to the Sloan Foundation 15 years ago, our website said we don't do the arts. So you can either blame me or credit me with the arts program, because I essentially started and have supervised it since the beginning, and it allows me having one person allows a certain quality control. I read everything myself, all the scripts and all the everything that's submitted. I've seen over the years, and it's interesting watching the trends. Theater, we've in some ways had more success with theater, with our theater partners, Ensemble Studio Theater, Manhattan Theater Club, Magic Theater, Playwrights Horizon. We commission dozens of new plays every year and help get them produced. Some well-known plays we've been involved with: Copenhagen, Proof, QED. We've been involved in opera more recently. That's by chance. Some operas, Dr. Atomic, Kepler, Philip Glass's opera this year opened at BAM, Tesla, and Icarus at the Edge of Time by Brian Greene. And with new media, Nova Web Profiles, we're supporters of Wikipedia and Project Renewal, various efforts that we involved in. I should say I was struck by the fact that until Dr. Sabito mentioned the internet yesterday, we went through the entire day. No one said anything about the internet. I never heard the word Facebook, YouTube, Twitter come up. And I think for those of you who are interested in trying to reach a young generation, even though you're working in television, you need to be aware of, I'm sure you are aware, but you need to be, I think, deploying all these various media together. I have here a list of, this is for the United States, but I'm sure there's a German, equivalent here of how many people use different media and how they reinforce one another. This is meant to be a little humorous, pinball machine analogy, but if you follow the metaphor for a while, so getting the attention of artists, writers, screenwriters, television writers, playwrights, librettists, even cartoonists, to focus on, we say science, technology, or STEM for your purposes, was not only a way to ensure a steady pipeline of material, it also recognized that all these various media form part of a single continuum or cultural matrix in which we're all embedded, so that these programs are ultimately interconnected, could influence one another. And I think it's a very important idea. Once a scientific theme or character has been dramatized in one form, once it has entered our consciousness in any recognizable medium, it's much more likely to be taken up in a second or third media iteration and to become integrated into our language, our imagination, our wider comprehension. Let me give you an example. Sylvia Nasser wrote a book called A Beautiful Mind. It got some good reviews. It sold okay. Then Ron Howard came along, decided to make it a movie starring Russell Crowe. When I heard about that, I then started supporting a documentary to coincide with the coming out of the film. The film came out, as you know, won the Oscar, was very successful. We did a documentary about John Nash at the same time. After the film came out, 1 million people went back and read the book, Sylvia Nasser's book. And so that's a way in which the film was a romanticization. It was not perfectly accurate. It took out some of the more controversial aspects of Nash's life. And I don't think you can freight film with too much of a educational burden. A film has to work as a film. That film was successful, and it stimulated people to then go read a much fuller treatment of that story. And I think that you need to think of the media that way, as and each one serves a different purpose, and if you try to overload any one of them, you're not going to succeed. The main thing is to whet the public's appetite. And so if we think of modern culture as a giant pinball machine with each medium as an amplifier that can ratchet up the score, the challenge is to get the S&T ball into play. The thing is, how do you introduce it? And once you get into play, it gets picked up over and over again. I have some statistics here about television. This is, again, in the United States. I'm sure in Germany it's closely equivalent. I mean, 99% of Americans have television sets. 250 billion hours are watched, more than 4 hours a day. By the average American, 66% watch TV while eating dinner. They have 3 sets or more. To me, the most extraordinary statistic, by age 65, the average American has spent 9 years glued to the tube. Film equivalent, 172 million, 10 movies yearly. Again, this is the United States, and it's probably a year or two out of date, but the trends are all the same. A lot of the people that are watching TV are watching movies on TV. 90 million homes have DVD players. They watch 4 billion DVDs, pay-per-view, 500 billion films. So we're saturated with these, with this media. So, which is the reason why we became involved in it. When I came to Sloan, my argument was, because we hadn't done these things before, we had done some public television, was if you want to reach the public, you need to go where the public is and where they are immersed in television and film. And our goals, our explicit goals, have been to influence the next generation of filmmakers. I'm going to go back to this, to increase the visibility for science feature films, to develop new film scripts about science and technology, and to push shows with scientists, engineers, and mathematicians. I'm going to mention a pilot project, interestingly, because we started at the beginning. David Milch and Stephen Bochco were at that time the two most successful writers in Hollywood. They had hit shows like Hill Street Blues, LA Law, NYPD Blue, for those of you who can remember that far back. We got involved with them. They opened a development office in Los Angeles. This was at a time when there was no CSI. The notion of science was really, they looked at you like you were coming from Mars. And the idea that you wanted to actually make entertaining shows about seemed very alien. On the other hand, I was a foundation guy with money, so they were willing to give me some time, and I had some personal connections, and I managed to get involved with these two people. And what happened is that we managed to, Hollywood, like all cultures or subcultures, is essentially, there's probably 50 people who are actually important at any one time. And the key thing was to go and get the attention of that community. We opened a development office. We got scripts submitted by some of the leading writers in town because they all wanted to work. Not they were interested in science and technology per se. They wanted opportunity to work with David Milch and Stephen Bochco. And we got a lot of attention, a lot of buzz. The pilot never aired, but it got so much attention. We did an event, a summit at the American Film Institute, where Milch criticized the scientists. We had James Watson on the panel. We had Richard Dawkins on the panel. Milch, who's provocative, would say things like, "I've met more gas station attendants who can look me in the eye than scientists." And it was very interesting back and forth, and it aired a lot of things, but it made everybody start talking about the subject. We then, 2 years later, I got about, I don't want to tell you, 10 phone calls and I don't know how many messages, people telling me, "Oh, Doron, they're doing your show, they're doing your show." The show was CSI. I had nothing to do with it whatsoever. But the point is that the notion of a show about science had finally taken root. And so from a foundation's point of view, we don't want to own anything. We're not interested in making money, which is very hard for people, especially in Hollywood, to understand. And so we actually want people to steal from us. We are idea seeders, and we scatter the ideas, and we try to get, and in Hollywood, if you make someone think something is interesting or valuable, they immediately want to steal it. Because nobody, the golden rule of Hollywood is no one knows anything from Adventures in the Screen Trade. It's actually very profound. It's not a throwaway line. And so people are always interested, where's the next big thing coming from? And I think we've seen with CSI, the franchise, with shows like Bones, with shows like Numbers, that the trend has been very positive in that direction. And I think one of the things we learned from that experience was that it's very important to go and deal with the people in any field who are the creators, the artists, rather than top down. And as the scientific community before had tried, various Nobel laureates and luminaries had come down from the mountaintop, so to speak, and thought they were going to hand the tablets to the, let's say, Hollywood screenwriters. It doesn't work that way. You need to come from the bottom up, from the people. If you want films, you need to go to screenwriters. You want plays, you need to go to playwrights. You need to go to the people whose experiences in doing that, and you need to encourage them to use the material, the raw material of STEM, but to turn it to their own devices. You can't tell them what they're going to do.